Hey friends, welcome back to Act Talk Your Story Matters. Today I am sitting down with Katy Rush from Lubbock, Texas. Katy, welcome to today's show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I'm so excited to dive into everything that you've been doing. Katy, I think we've met through some mutual friends over the years and like some mutual events and just passions of ours, and we keep running into each other. So we definitely have some things in common. But before we get into everything that you do, I want to know a little bit about your background, like how you grew up. And I know this is a loaded question, but how you grew up and then how that transpired into where you are today.
Sure. And so feel free to cut me off if I'm talking too much because there's a lot of random information. But I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. So I lived in the city until I was 7. And then we moved out near Weatherford in a little town called Aledo, which is not so little anymore. So I grew up outside every day, all the time, had a lot of friends. We didn't own any cattle or anything at the time or any horses, but I had a lot of friends that did and spent a lot of time with them. Still went to school in Fort Worth. So it's kind of a mixture of both environments, but loved it. Love that area of Texas. And then I went to college in Tennessee at a university called Sewanee, the University of the South. It's in between Nashville and Chattanooga.
Did not know that.
Yeah, my dad's from Nashville, and so I think I always knew I would come back to this area to be, and so I wanted to get out a little bit. And my grandmother was still alive at the time, and so I went to college out there and majored in Spanish and had this whole plan to do international business. I had this whole idea, and God had other plans for me, which I'm very grateful for. So then I moved back to Fort Worth after college, and so I started working at this store that's still in the stockyards in Fort Worth called the Maverick. That was my first job out of college. I worked there for 4.5 years in sales, and then I developed into marketing and helped them with their website. And then I went from there to work for a company called ML Letty's, which is also in the Fort Worth Stockyards. It's a custom boot and saddle maker. So I worked there for about 4 years as their women's buyer and manager. And then after that, I went to work for Cowboys and Indians magazine. And while I was working for them is when I met my husband. And so then after we decided to get married and everything, I was going to move out to West Texas. So I decided I wanted to find a job out here. So that's the path that brought me out here. So I've always worked in Western retail and fashion and marketing, and kind of that sphere. And then moving out here, I did events more. Katie Jane Seaton was one of the first people I met when I moved out here. And
Love.
uh, she was doing an event that I helped her with a few years in a row and did her auctions for her. So that's kind of how I got plugged into a lot of people in this area. So
That's so cool. Okay, so I did not know. I think I knew that you worked at ML Letty's, which is phenomenal. Like if y'all have not been there, it is like in the heart of the Fort Worth Stockyards. You cannot miss it. It's an iconic store. Tell us a little bit more about that. Were you in the store a lot or were you more like behind the scenes?
no, I was in the store almost every day. So when I was at the Maverick, they did a great job of sales training. So we learned like the old school way how to sell to customers and customer service, and something that I think is coming back. I'm seeing it trending back, but in a lot of places that you go, online shopping is such a thing now that when you go into a store, it's not really about the experience anymore, right? You're going in because you
No.
need a dress for an event, or you need a pair of boots, or you need this, or you need that. But when I worked there, it was an experience. Someone would come into our store and some of them were looking for something, but some of them were just tourists. Some of them were just travel,
Mhm.
you know. And so we really learned how to serve our customers there, which is the foundation that I learned that I take with me to where I am now. But I wanted to do more. I didn't want to just do sales anymore. I wanted to do more. And so there just was an opportunity at the time at the Maverick for that. And so Letty's was needing a women's buyer, and they were ready to grow in that area. So I came in and designed a lot of products for them, worked with a lot of really incredible manufacturers and designers, and designed women's clothing, designed some boots, some jewelry, really got a new product mix in there, and worked with a lot of incredible people along the way. So I was in the store every day. I mean, the people that we got to meet, one of my favorite stories, I think it was a Saturday night, and we were closed on Sundays at the time. And it was like 4:30. We closed at 6. And I get this phone call, and it is from Dolce and Gabbana. No, it's from Dolce's assistant. And they're wanting a private shopping experience that night from like 6 to 8 for him. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. So I go and I talk to all my guys, and they're all ranching cowboy guys. And they're like, no, we close at 6. We're tired. Like, and I couldn't keep the store open by myself. So I called him back and I'm like, I'm so sorry. We're just not gonna be able to accommodate a private shopping experience tonight at this short notice. But, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. So they end up asking me to meet them down in the stockyards and basically give them a tour of the stockyards. And no one knew who he was, right? I mean, no one knows he's this huge designer and Domenico Dolce. And so I get to tour him all around the stockyards, and it was just really cool. Like, that's the kind of people you'd get to meet. Alanis Morissette, like famous football players, like all sorts of Carrie Underwood. I mean, all sorts of different people you get to meet working in that capacity. It was just really, really cool.
And then you went to Cowboys and Indians magazine. And I mean,
Yeah.
they're pretty big too.
Yes, and they've grown even since I left, just with Teton Ridge and with all these new things coming out that are just blowing up our Western industry. But yeah, I loved it. And I was a ad sales is what I did, but she also pulled me in to help with the matrix of the magazine. So the layout of it all and figuring out where all the ads go and everything. And I got to help with the fashion segments with the fashion director at the time. So that was probably my favorite part, honestly.
Well, I love that you're now, a part of where I'm from. So you got to take that experience and bring that back into West Texas. And something that we don't really get into much on Ag Talk, but I want to ask you because I know you and Matt's story. And I remember when you were making that transition, Katy, I remember following you on social media when you were moving back or moving to Lubbock or this area. I want to know like a little bit of how y'all met. I think that's a really cool story and just where y'all are today because you do so many things together and you play off of each other so well. Like you can't have Katy and you can't just have Matt. Like you have to have Katy and Matt.
We do kind of go together as a little pair, yes. Well, I think we're both interesting in the fact that we get each other. Like I'm a very unique person. He's a very unique person as well. And we both do 12 things. We both respect the 12 things that we do. We're somehow able to manage our schedules where we're not freaking out all the time. We have moments where we look at it and we're like, how are we going to make it through the next 2 weeks? But it always works out. Like you said earlier, I also have trouble saying no sometimes not because I'm a people pleaser, but because I love opportunities and I love connecting people and I love doing things. And so I've had to really become more aware of synergy within my home and making sure that we just, don't overcommit ourselves. But we met through a mutual friend. He had actually posted, it's kind of a long story, so I'll condense it, but he had posted a picture of Emma Letty's boot sign in San Angelo. And one of my friends who lived in San Luis Obispo at the time, California, she's actually from El Paso, but she was living out there, tagged me in that picture that Matt had posted and said, you should meet my friend Katy Rush if you need some boots. She's working there. And I actually wasn't. I was already working at Cowboys and Indians magazine, but he didn't know that. So we became friends on social media, but didn't really talk. We were both seeing other people. And then so like 8 months later, he had a terrible accident at the farm in Dora and actually almost died. It was really bad. He impaled himself while trying to fix part of the tractor. And so
that just gave me goosebumps. I did not know that. Haven't heard that story.
It was actually 10 years ago this past January, I believe. I think it was, yeah, because it happened in 2015. So he was standing like on the quick hitch of a tractor trying to get it loose and it broke. And so it impaled his upper, I was about to say hind quarter, his upper rear cheek, I guess you could say, and was an inch away from hitting his femoral artery. So if it would have gone an inch in any other direction, he wouldn't be here right now. So hurt pretty bad and was resting and everything and got on Facebook and was scrolling and saw my picture. And so then he was trying to remember I don't remember. And I didn't remember how we had connected, So then he just starts commenting on everything I'm posting. And I'm like, who is this guy? Is this a creep? And I had literally gotten out of a relationship and didn't want to date anybody. I was exhausted. And so anyway, he just kept on and finally we connected and we ended up going out. And after our first date, I knew like, I think I'm done, so he's pretty.
You were his little angel. I love that. Okay. So let's get into all of the hats that you wear, Katy. And when I announced you, I should have said, this is Katy Rush. She's an event planner. She's a speaker. She has her own jewelry business. She puts on leadership conferences and she works at the National Ranching Heritage Center. So I love all of that. And we talk about this all the time, Katy, specifically on this podcast of like, if you're a woman in agriculture, you don't just do one thing. We wear many hats. So Let's dive into that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. What do you want to know?
Okay, so I think we should go into events, kind of segue into that just because we've been talking about ML Letty's and your experience there. So
Sure.
you did a huge wedding. Oh, you did a wedding at
The
it's
Biltmore.
yes, the Biltmore.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience.
So when I had done a lot of weddings, I also growing up, in college, I was always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Like I was the maid of honor like 7 times, I think, and then a bridesmaid many more times. So I have a lot of friends and I planned everything, just it naturally fell that way. And so I've always loved weddings. And I didn't remember this, but my college roommate told me that I came home one day and told her I wanted to be a wedding planner, which I do not remember, but I said that. So then when I moved out here and I was looking for work and everything, I worked retail and I also started working at Eberly Brooks Events. So that was kind of where I first started doing events out here. And I loved it and it was great. And then, you do not that we were getting the same weddings every weekend, but if you're at a venue, you kind of get into a routine. I was kind of wanting to like get out and do more and be more creative. And Matt and I had some stuff going, events have always overlapped with speaking and with other things that Matt and I have going on. So my focus in my career has always kind of shifted from one thing to another. And so it was shifting in 2020. And then we all know what happened in 2020, COVID. And so I lost all of my events that I had booked in a series of like a week. Matt lost all his speaking gigs in a series of 2 days. So then in 2021, my events and stuff kind of started coming back. And I had a friend who got engaged and she was going to get married and she didn't want to get married in Lubbock because she wanted to get out and do something completely different and they had the means to be able to do that. And her sister had gotten married at their family place in Sheridan, Wyoming, which is beautiful. So she was kind of talking about her vision and I said, well, have you ever heard of the Biltmore? And she said, no, I don't know what that is. What is that? And so I kind of explained it to her. I showed it to her and she was like, oh, I love this. Yes. So we kind of went through an exploratory trip there and toured it and it was perfect. And so when I tell you this is like the event of my lifetime and I'll probably never get to do an event like this again, I hope I do, but it was incredible. We went, I think, 4 times before the actual wedding to Asheville, North Carolina, and stayed at the Omni Grove Hotel, which is my favorite hotel in the whole world. If you just need a vacation, it's amazing. And we would tour and we would plan. And I mean, it was a bunch of mini events inside one big event, if that makes sense. And it's completely challenging because it's not just like I'm from Lubbock and I'm going to Dallas to do a wedding. I'm from a completely different state. I have vendors from all over. This is not just a run of the mill event where you're like, yeah, let me reach out to a few florists. Like it's just very particular, very challenging projects, very challenging timeline, very challenging venue because the house itself is 5 miles from the entrance gate and it goes one way, the street does. And so to ensure your vendors get at the right place at the right time, and then where are they going to house the thousands of dollars of flowers that you're using to, I mean, it's like so many logistical details. But when we were flying in a week before, we could see the tent for the wedding from the plane. So that was pretty insane to be able to see the Biltmore house is right here. And then her wedding tent is like right next to it. That was pretty humbling. And it was just beautiful. I mean, as events go, of course, things happened that we had to fix and we had to adjust and account for, but it was absolutely beautiful and so magical. And yeah, I'm still very, very happy and proud and excited about that one.
Oh, you should be. I remember looking at the pictures and I was just like, oh my goodness. Tell us a little bit, like just real quick, what makes the Biltmore like so iconic? And
Sure.
obviously there's a history there.
So the Biltmore's called the Last Castle. I can't remember the exact year that it opened, but it was the early 1900s, like 1908 or something like that. And it was built by George Vanderbilt. And he actually started building it when he was in his, I think, early 30s. He was single at the time. He just wanted to make something that would stand the test of time throughout his family. And it's actually still in the family today. It's still run by the family. There's a great book called The Last Castle that talks about it in great detail. And it's really interesting. Matt and I listened to it on Audible. But they truly are an incredible company as far as like to work for. All the people that we worked with, they have an insanely amazing system to train all of their employees, and all of their employees are so wonderful. They have the most beautiful gardens you've ever seen. They actually had a horticulturalist work with the builder to plan out all of the gardens. And I mean, George Vanderbilt went to Paris and studied Versailles and like some other places and modeled the home after that. It is the largest home in America. largest single family home in America. And so he would summer there. He lived a lot of his years there. He actually died, I believe, in his late 50s, like very young. And so then his wife kept it up and continued it and everything. But it's in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I think it currently sits on 10,000 acres or 8,500 acres or something like that. So it's got several resorts on it that you can stay on. It was not badly damaged by the hurricane, thankfully, and the storm and everything. And the flooding, the main gate was, but like the house itself and all the properties you can stay on are still up and running. And it's a beautiful place. So very historical. It's over 100 years old. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And it's a feat of construction, like how they put it together. And if you go through the home and tour it and everything, in the basement, they have the exhibit set up that shows how all these men built it at that time. And it's really, really, really cool. Beautiful place. I want to go back already.
Girls trip.
Yep.
Bucket list for me. Let's go.
Yep. I'm gonna do it. And there's also a farm on the property and a dairy and a winery. So they really try to produce a lot of their own things that they use in their restaurants on property and stuff too, which I think is really, really cool.
That is awesome. Why do you get the agriculture in there?
Right? Yeah, I'm like, let me slide that detail on in there.
All right. We're having so much fun with this conversation. We're going to take a quick break, but hang on. We will be right back. Are you still thinking about joining Ag Women Connect? This is your sign to do just that. With 3 different membership options suited for every level of business, there is something for everyone. If you've been wanting to connect with other like-minded women in agriculture, then Ag Women Connect is for you. If you've been craving a community of women that you can lean on for support and growth, then Ag Women Connect is for you. We are leading the way in networking for women in agriculture and aim to provide a platform to share everyone's story in ag, no matter what your role is. So what are you waiting for? Join Ag Women Connect today at agwomenconnect.com. Okay, friends, we are back from the break. Let's get into what else Katy Rush does. I noticed you have a lot of pretty jewelry around your neck. You have a jewelry business.
I do.
It's called Turquoiseology, right?
Yes. Yep. It's called Turquoiseology.
All right. How'd you get started there?
So in 2020, the very end of 2020, kind of when a lot of different things were culminating, Matt had always asked me, you love jewelry so much, why don't you sell it? And I don't know. I just hadn't felt, I've always wanted to do something with jewelry, but I hadn't felt like it was the right time. I didn't really know how to go about it. And so I just kind of dove in at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, and started just doing what I could, buying what I could, and working with some different artists in New Mexico that I'd worked with in my other positions. And then slowly, while I was doing that, Matt was sculpting, and I'll let you have him on at some point and talk, in depth about that. But he had just started sculpting and was doing that journey. And so I was kind of doing little things with my jewelry. Like I was working on building a website and doing smaller shows and independent consultations and things. And he went to the NFR in 2020 with his sculpture. So then as I kind of was starting my jewelry in 2021, he got invited to go back. He went with the 4 Sixes Ranch at their pop-up shop. So we got invited to go to another show with them, and they were like, you can bring your jewelry, that's fine. So I started doing shows with them and bringing my jewelry to that. And that kind of launched me doing shows. And then, so I did shows really solid for about 2.5 years with it. And then I discovered that is not what I want to do because I love shows. They're so much fun. But if you've never set up a show, set up a booth, I mean, it's a commitment. I respect everybody that does it, and it is so much fun. But that was just not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a little more stable, not traveling as much and dependent upon, that for my jewelry. So then it's kind of evolved to where I'm working on a new website now and a new concept, because there's a lot of jewelry companies out there, right? There's a ton of turquoise companies out there. And I don't want to be doing the same thing as everybody else. So I want to find more vintage is what I really want to focus on now. One-of-a-kind pieces. And then I've got a couple particular artists that I'm working with that you don't see everywhere, so that I can bring a collection of things that are kind of not modern, but a little more out of the box than what you normally see. So that's kind of what I'm currently working on, but I love it. It's all genuine sterling or 14 karat gold, or if it's vintage, like nickel silver, German silver, and then all true stones. I don't want to do anything that's not real turquoise or a real gemstone or anything like that.
Well, I am forever grateful that you donated a piece. It was spiny coral. It was an orange piece, a necklace, so pretty. You did that for our foundation a couple years ago, and I think it was one of like our highest bidding items. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. No problem.
Yeah, and it was very unique. I don't think I've ever seen a necklace like that before. It was super cool.
This piece, I'll just give a little shout out for her because I love her. So this is
Oh yeah.
it's called a dreamer. It's a dreamer eye, and I think it's Kingman turquoise, but she does sterling silver on top of stones, which I think is cool. Her name's Rebecca Chamberlain, and she lives in Santa Fe. And she's actually doing a trunk show at the Maverick. I think it's in Fort Worth. I think it's this weekend. It's either this weekend or next weekend. I'm pretty sure it's this weekend. And she's doing that trunk show with her boyfriend, Matthew Herring, who also is a silversmith. And together they are lights out, two of the most creative people I've ever met. So go check that out if you're in the Fort Worth area.
Yeah, I've been eyeballing that. I like that. And it's very different, and I like the layers that you have. So like, do you want to talk about that? Because I mean, that's what women do. That's how they start out, right? Because obviously this kind of jewelry is not, and it's not inexpensive. It's something that you would want to pass down to your kids or your family. But you start out with like one piece and you add on to that.
Yes, I was discussing when I was in Santa Fe a few weeks ago, I was talking to another collector, a fellow collector of things, and we were talking about pieces, and she said, I always advise people don't just buy what you kind of like. Buy the best piece that you can afford at the time. So if you're looking at a collection of things you'd really like to have and nothing is really singing to you, don't just buy something to buy something because you want to have some more pieces. Wait. And wait until buy the best thing that you can afford at the time. And that's going to help you build your collection to be something truly amazing, down the road. And I'm very eclectic, as you can see. I love bright colors. I have like 20 bracelets on my arm right now. I wear a lot of jewelry. So if you wear a lot of jewelry, then buy pieces that you can see yourself wearing for years to come. But then also know you can resell. They hold their value.
Mm-hmm.
Buy real things, it holds its value, and you can easily sell it and recoup most of the time what you paid for it because it's only going to go up in value. But I think be true to yourself. Like, you can look at all of these influencers and all of these magazines and all of the pictures and the styling and think, oh, okay, I just want this look. I want that exact look right there. I'm going to take that. And that's fine. But also don't be afraid to make it your own and to try new things. And to, like, my motto is more, less is a bore. I think that comes from Iris Apfel, and I love her. And she goes crazy and wears a ton of things. I mean, like, figure out what you want to do to make your style unique and what's true to you and what makes you feel confident and feel like you, and do that. Don't try to worry about what are the rules, how many am I supposed to have? What do you like? Like, do you want to just wear one set, or do you want to build and have on 5? Like, either way, as long as you're being honorable to who you are, then it's great.
Oh, that's really, really good advice. Amen to all that.
And you can mix silver and gold. That's not a rule. You can do that. I do that all the time. So people, oh, it's silver, and I was doing my silver today. I don't care. I do silver and gold all the time. I have silver and gold all down my arm.
And I feel the same thing about black and brown. And I've always been that way. And I got so much for it when I was younger. Like, oh no, if you have black shoes on, then you have to wear a black belt. And I'm like, no, girl, we are mixing it up. So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about the National Ranching Heritage Center, which I adore. And y'all I want to talk about, I just talked to Ashley, had lunch with her a couple weeks ago about the new Red Steagall. Are y'all allowed to talk about that right now?
So we're not quite in the public phase about it, but
okay.
I can give a little bit of detail about that. Yeah.
Yay. All right. So yeah, they're basically bringing in a whole music sector into the National Ranching Heritage Center. And I think it's going to be incredible.
So I started working with them with the National Ranching Heritage Center in March of 2021. As I said, all my stuff has overlapped. So I started working part-time for them and running the store, Cogdell's General Store. And so it's evolved into now where I work for them, and I manage and run Cogdell's General Store. And then I also manage all of our rentals and events and half of our internal events that we produce every year. So I'm responsible for Summer Stampede, which is our art and gear show in June, Ranch First, which is a poetry, writing, music, cowboy event in August, and then Golden Spur, which is in October. So that's where we present the Golden Spur Award recipient and Working Cowboy Award recipient. So I wear a lot of hats here as I do in my life, which is really fun. But I feel like my position here combines all of the things I love into a position, which how often does that happen for an organization? So we are on Texas Tech campus, but we are actually run and directed and everything by the Ranching Heritage Association. So we are completely membership based. So everyone should be a member. Yay. We've got membership opportunities anywhere from individual to if you want to sponsor structure. So our original organization, we started with a historical park out back. And so now we cover about 19 acres and we have over 53 historical structures that take you through the history of ranching, going as early as I believe the late 1600s. So you can literally come on property and do a walking tour and see firsthand how people lived through in the ranching world through time and how that evolved and the conditions that they dealt with and lived through and all of that. So it's a really unique place. I've never heard of another place like it. And then in our main galleries inside, we've got a spur exhibit. We're working on a new Western art exhibit where we will feature, what is Western art? What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Different mediums of it, paintings, sculpture. I believe we've got a wood piece that's going to go in there. That's really cool. And then we have an oil and ranching exhibit right now that'll run, I believe, through the rest of this year. And then we'll be probably bringing Quanah Parker back out. We also have the largest collection of Quanah Parker artifacts next to the Smithsonian. So we have a lot of really cool archives and collector's items and things. It's a really unique spot to be able to come. And so we also host events here. So people have gotten married here. They've hosted their conferences here, their meetings, their galas, all sorts of different things. So we really do a lot in the community. We're not just a museum. We are, and that's our first intent, but we do so much more. We recently came under the umbrella of outreach and engagement at Texas Tech. So we're working on more outreach and engagement as well. And with the Red Steagall Institute that we're working on. So I'm hoping most everyone knows Red. I was looking at my there because I have a picture of Red up there, but Red Steagall is an icon in our industry. He's amazing. And he is gifting us his complete collection of works when he is gone. So what we are doing to answer that gift is working on the Red Steagall Institute. So it will be a collection of different structures that teaches and honors and promotes the work of, there'll be a spur and bit shop, a saddle shop, recording studio, a quiet reading room, like all sorts of different things like that, where we'll be able to host a number of different events in Western arts. So it's a really neat project. And we're in the, I guess you call it the silent phase of the project right now, where we're fundraising and everything for it. But we're hoping that it'll go into the public phase next year or later this year.
Oh, it's going to be incredible. And I've been so blessed. So I tell people she's like my second mother. Her name is Jean Prescott. I don't know if you know her or not, Katy, but she's the songbird of the prairie. And she belongs to that whole Red Steagall group of, cowboy, cowgirl, Western music. Her and Judy James both. Judy lives in Weatherford and Jean lives in Abilene. But yeah, I still follow her and I've learned so much from her. And she also likes to outfit me too. So they're so cool. Like it's this huge group of women and men across the United States that are truly preserving the Western cowboy music industry. And there's not a lot more out there. It's them. And so they're really trying to cultivate and bring up the younger generations. I'll put a plug in for them. They have a Western cowboy cowgirl like poem and songwriting and music camp every summer in Weatherford. So I know that they would be super excited to learn more about Red Steagall, and I'm sure they probably already know about it, but I'm excited for the rest of the world to see it because I just think it's amazing.
Oh yeah, I do too. And I would love to connect with them, and maybe there'd be a way to, like, for Ranch Verse, that might be a fun thing to marry those two events somehow.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'll get you connected with them. And I'll also want to brag on the Cash Family Life Center. Hank the Cow Dog is incredible. I grew up reading his books, and y'all did so well with that whole sector of the museum. It's really cool. I mean, not only for children, but I'm a 41-year-old woman. I'm like, I want to go check out Hank the Cow Dog, please.
So my store is in that wing of the museum, and I absolutely adore it. We opened that, let's see, in October of 2023. Yes, it's been open for a year, last October. So, and it's the Cash Family Ranch Life Learning Center. So we have this ranch life learning curriculum and these 5 books by John Erickson that he wrote that are about. So if you're familiar with Hank the Cow Dog, it's still written through the eyes of Hank the Cow Dog, but it is about 5 different topics in ranching that ranchers deal with to educate kids and adults and whoever about ranching and cowboys and horses and livestock and prairie ecology and wildfires and just the different things that, especially in this part of the world, that we deal with in ranching. And so basically that curriculum and those books were used to create the Cash Family Ranch Life Learning Center, where we've got in the indoor portion, there's different digital games and videos and different things that you can participate in to learn and to play and to grow in that area. And then outside, it's like you're stepping onto Hank the Cow Dog's ranch. So we've got the ranch house, and we've got the machine shed and all the different things that you hear about and see in the books. We've got bronzes out there. We have a bronze of Hank, of Drover, and of Pete the cat. So it's just a really unique facility, and we're so blessed to have it. We've gotten an incredible feedback. I believe last year we had over 9,000 kids come through on field trips. So we're trying to break that number this year, and it's just a really amazing asset to our area. We also have an amphitheater out there with a small pasture where we're able to do exhibits and demonstrations of different things with cattle and range dogs and all sorts of different things out there. So it's been really great.
Y'all did such a great job, like just creating his vision. We had a meeting there, I guess, last year, and the kids were crawling all over everything, and they were excited.
Like, a safe place to be able to come and bring your kids and let them play and visit with other adults while they're playing. And yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, the amphitheater. That was a really good idea. So, well, we are dwindling down to our second segment, but we still have so much more to talk about. But we're going to take a quick break. Hang on, we'll be right back. Okay, friends, we are back from the break, and we're going to open up this conversation. We have a few women on today's show, so I'm going to let y'all ask Katy some questions.
So first of all, Katy, thank you for being here. I love your story. It's pretty incredible. My question is, did you ever imagine that this would be your life? Because what surprised me was you said you went to school for Spanish. And this is where you've kind of like gone into. And, you know, I think it's pretty incredible what life and what God throws at us. So would this have ever been a thought, even as like how as little girls we dream to be princesses or something? Would this have ever been something you thought of as your life?
That's a really great question, and thank you for the compliment. That's really kind. No, the answer is no. I'd never. It drove my father crazy because he was a double accounting and economic major, and he would always say, "What are you going to study in college?" And I would say, "I don't know." "What are you going to do after college?" "I don't know." And he would want me to have a plan, and it always drove him nuts. And I couldn't settle on anything. And now I see why. And he actually worked for a store called, which everyone will know, Pier 1 Imports. He worked there for 44 years and went from being in the stock room in Nashville when he was 19 years old to being an executive VP with the company. So I grew up in retail my whole life with him, helping him, doing things. And I feel like I always had that bug and I loved it, but I never had, I love museums. I never thought one day I'll work in a museum. I remember when I came to the National Ranching Heritage Center when I worked for Cowboys and Indians magazine, because I was trying to get them to advertise. And the woman at the time who I spoke to said, "Well, you're really sweet and I'm going to take you to lunch, but just know we don't have the budget for that. We're not going to advertise." And I was like, okay. So I learned all about the museum and took a tour from her and everything. And I remember thinking, wow, that would be an incredible place to work. But I also thought, I have no idea what I would do there. There's nothing there that would match what, my gift set or anything. And so then as this job came about, I was doing several other things still when Jim Brett Campbell, our executive director, approached me about it, and we were connected, and then he approached me about the job. And I honestly went in to tell him, I don't think this is going to work out for me, because I was just too crazy at the time. I had too much going on, and I just thought, how am I going to be able to do that? And I remember when I went in that day, my husband said, I was kind of freaking out. Like, well, I don't know. Am I making the right decision? He was like, just let God lead, like go in there and let God lead the conversation. I was like, okay. So I came in ready to tell Jim Brett, like, I just don't think, I just don't know. I don't think it's going to work. What y'all are wanting. I'm not gonna be able to give time wise and everything. So I walk in and he just starts talking to me like, thanks for coming to accept the position. This is what you'll be doing. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I couldn't talk for a minute. And finally I was like, so I came in to actually tell you, I don't think this is going to work. And he sat back in his chair and he said, let's talk about it. How can it work? How can it work? And I was like, oh my gosh. So we sat there for a long time talking about it. And he was very patient with me and very open. And now it's evolved into a full-time, position that I adore. And it's transformed from what we originally talked about. And that's God. That's totally God. Like if I wouldn't have listened and trusted and gone with that, I would not be where I am right now. And I'm so thankful for it. And in 5 years, I don't know what I'll be doing, but that's what I've learned in my life, to trust God and to really just let him lead. And it's hard. And sometimes, you think you're doing it and then you get thrown a curveball and you're like, wait a minute, I thought I was trusting you, but I was not. So I'm gonna go back to it. I'm gonna do that. But this job really is a result of that. And I'm so thankful for it. I really am. I would have never seen myself here. I just love it.
That's awesome. And I agree with you. Sometimes we think we're trusting God and we're like, wait, no, we're relying on our own understanding, not his. Curveball.
Yep.
But awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I want to know what you do to unplug.
So, I feel like that changes throughout your life, right? Depending upon where you are and everything. Funny enough, after that Biltmore wedding, there was a period of time where I could not relax. I could not. I was on, and it was just from the hyped up habit I had of the last 6 months of my life, always being on call, always fixing a problem, always like go, 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 fight or flight. And so then because, I was doing all my other things in addition to that. And so after that, I remember, I would be like, I can't relax. I can't relax. I can't relax. And I had to teach myself how to do that again. And so that was really interesting. But I love to read. I don't sit still very well, but if I'm reading, I can sit still for hours. I love to hike. I love being outdoors and being outside. I love music. So a combination of all those things for sure. And I love people. I'm a people person. So I love to just go get a coffee with a girlfriend or go to dinner or take a class. Like I'll try anything at least once and then I find out if I'm terrible at it, I don't want to do it again. Just things like that.
Yeah, I've seen your hiking pictures and you've been to some pretty cool places.
Yes, Paladuro is one of my favorites. And I hear a lot of people say, well, it's getting too crazy. People are always there. Everyone knows about it now. I don't care. And if you go early in the morning or, just pick a different trail than everybody's on, don't do the lighthouse trail right away because everybody's going to be on it. I mean, I love Paladuro. I love it so much. I would live there. If I could live anywhere, I would live on the side of Paladuro and stay there all the time. But that's probably one of my favorite places. We recently went to Big Bend this past April, about a year ago, and that was amazing. I loved Big Bend. The stars out there are like unreal. And then Guadalupe Mountain is another one of my favorites. My mom and I've done the Peak Trail a few times, and I love it out there. There's a lot of history.
Girl, next time you go hiking, you just let me know. I'll go with you.
I was going to go this. Okay, I'll let you know too. I was going to go this last weekend, and then the reality of I've been out of town the past 3 weeks here and there. I need to do stuff at my house sank in, so I didn't go, but I need to get out soon. I'm feeling like I need to be outside. So
yeah, well, with this crazy weather, with it being 90 yesterday and was it 60 today, it's so volatile. It can't make up its mind.
I know. It's bipolar Texas weather. For sure.
I would love to go hiking with y'all, but I'm still in the Fort Worth area. But same, I did my master's at WT, and my friends laughed at me because they're like, if it's the weekend, we know where Mandy is, because I was hiking the canyon. I took so many wrong turns and like hiked up and down all of that. It's like one of my favorite places. I can't wait to take my husband and my daughter because it's like the coolest place.
Yes. Oh, you need to come up for a weekend and a trip, and we'll do it. Yeah, it's so much fun.
All about it. Yeah, let's do it. My question, because I have some similarities in the transitions of different things. So Fort Worth to WT, I did make it back to Fort Worth, but that just is because that was where my person was, boyfriend at the time. Now we're married and have a daughter. So, and you kind of touched a little bit with your answer to Crystal, but can you just kind of talk through some of that the faith in taking those steps to leaving your comfort zones and going from Fort Worth to Tennessee to Lubbock, like, because those are very big and very different places. So can you just kind of touch on how to be comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think it that's a great question. And I think I remember I know this was a long time ago. I mean, I'm almost 40. So when I was 18 years old, I remember 17, the school I went to, Swanee, came and visited our high school and had a booth and everything. And I saw it and I just knew, I knew that's where I was supposed to go. I did. I knew I knew I was going to go there. It's a small liberal arts school, so very competitive to get into. So I even didn't know if I had the GPA and all that to get in, but I just knew that's where I'm supposed to go. I spent the most time on that application and then got all these recommendation letters. I got in and then I get there and I loved it. I mean, it was gorgeous. It had a perimeter trail around the whole thing that was 27 miles and you could hike the whole thing. I went trail running every day. I was in the best shape of my life. I loved it. But I had never not been, I mean, been being born and raised in Fort Worth. All my family was there. I had a huge friend group and no one else went there. One girl from my school who was a year older than me went there, but she had already been established and had her friend group and everything. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, I don't know anybody. Like, what am I doing? So that was really hard. And it took, like, there were a lot of nights where I struggled with anxiety because I was shy. I mean, I'm not shy anymore, but at the time I was shy and I didn't know how to walk into a room and make new friends and meet people. And it was really challenging. But I just kept trusting the Lord that this was where I was supposed to be. And it's a process, right? It's not like you do it once and then you're like, oh, I've learned how to trust him. I've learned how to be okay with this situation and the fact that I'm in a new place. It's like you do it and you feel good for 2 days and then you crash again. And then you do it and you feel good for a week and then you crash again. So I think I would just say, you know, keep challenging yourself. And when you feel God calling you to do things, like if you're in your comfort zone all the time, you're not reaching your full potential in the Lord because he's going to call you out of that comfort zone to grow, to help things for his kingdom. I mean, I've learned that. I got comfortable at Swanee and then I studied abroad in Spain and that was the same thing. It was terrifying. I mean, I loved it. I mean, don't get me wrong, but like it was crazy and terrifying and insane. Then I moved back to Fort Worth and got settled. Loved it. It was just feeling on top of the world there. And then met Matt and knew, you know, we have a farm in Dora, so I knew he wasn't going to move. And so then I moved to West Texas. And after being in Fort Worth for close to 10 years after college, that was a big move. And I was open to my career. So that wasn't the part that was holding me. But I have heard that you're not supposed to make 3 huge life changes all at the same time. For example, you're not supposed to move, get married, and find a new job all at the same time. Because especially as a woman, I think as a human, but as a woman, that is a lot of change. And I did all 3 of those things at the same time, not knowing that, not thinking about that, and not really understanding how it was going to affect me until I was already in it. And it was really hard. The marriage part at the time wasn't hard because your first couple years of marriage are hard in that you're learning how to be in a marriage and everything. But more so it was hard being in a new place where I didn't know anybody. You know, I knew Matt's friends and Matt's family, but I didn't have my own set of friends and my own community yet. So that was like the 4th or 5th time I had done it at that point, but it was hard. And I remember for the first 3 years, I wasn't depressed, but I was kind of struggling with it because I was like, I want my Trinity River back that I run on. I want some trees. You know, we live in Levelland and I love Levelland, but I'm like, the dirt, what is this blowing dirt that we have out here? These tumbleweeds. I didn't know tumbleweeds were real until I moved out there. And it just took a lot of getting used to. And I would always tell Matt, you know, he would say things like, we're out here, we're going to stay out here. And I'm like, no, we're moving back to Fort Worth. I'm giving you 4 years out here. We're moving back to Fort Worth. Well, it's been 8 years and I don't feel that way anymore. I mean, if the Lord called us to go somewhere else, but I'm very happy out here and I love it. And it took that time. And I think that's unfortunately one of the things that you just, when you're experiencing that you have to kind of learn and be okay with is time. Time is what you're going to need. Time to get to know new people, time to grieve the loss of what you had before, but realize that you're growing and it's time to move forward and do different things. And also just to trust that, you know, if you are walking in the purpose that the Lord has for you, like if you are looking for joy and you're walking in that purpose, you're going to find it. Like if you are having gratitude every day. Like you're going to find that joy and you're going to figure out what you're supposed to be doing. You know, if you sit here every day and you're like, wow, it's really dusty. I really wish I was in Fort Worth. Like, yeah, you're not going to be happy, but you've got to realize where you're at and realize what you're being called to do and try to live in that. And then the happiness is just going to follow suit, if that makes sense.
So that was really good. You feel confident for a couple of days and then same thing, like you crash. And I've been that many times, mostly when I moved to WT and did the same thing. I knew no one. I had a friend's little sister and that was about it. And I'm like, what am I doing?
Well, you just have to take the small victories, the small wins. Like when you go to a books, like in Canyon, for example, if you go to the Honey Creek farm, and you meet one of the ladies there and they're so nice, like that is a win. Like you had a great conversation with that person. That's a win for the day. Like let that be a win. Don't worry too far ahead about like, oh my gosh, I don't know anybody. How am I going to make friends? Like if you put yourself out there, you're going to make friends. Like you're going to figure it out, and God's going to bring people into your path. But that's the hardest part, right? Is trusting. It's the hardest part.
I agree. It should be easier, but we're all a little stubborn. And like, if you think about it, like, if you look back at like all of the different things, like, and how far you've come, like from previous experiences, like, it's like, holy crap, like I've done this before.
Mm-hmm.
All of these cool things came out of it. So that's awesome. You have an awesome story. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Does anybody else have another question?
Hey, I have a quick one. This is Sharon. Unfortunately, it's not about you, but it's more about your work, if that's okay. Yeah, of course, Red Steagall, I am a huge fan. I've got a few years on you girls, but a huge fan of Red Steagall. And that's very heartwarming to know where all of his work is going to go, because there's nobody replacing him. You know, just like we've lost a lot of our legends with Billy Clapper, John Israel. We're losing our legends and there's nobody to replace them. So I'm so glad to hear that such historic documents and work is going to be actually cherished in the Ranching Center. And I just was curious if you can share anything about how that will be displayed, if there will be different parts of his work displayed, different features, different times of the year, or, spread out over the years. If you can share anything about it. If not, I will wait for public announcement on it.
Sure. I'll get Venessa to share my email and my contacting stuff too. So feel free, anybody, to reach out if you have more in-depth questions than what I provide here. And I can send you our materials, our marketing materials and fundraising materials that have a bit more of that information and some of the renderings and everything. We're also receiving Billy Clapper's shop. So we will be.
Oh my gosh. Cool.
So we will be taking possession of that. And that's going to be a part of the new Red Steagall Institute as well. But we're still in the design, the design phase, approving everything. So I can't tell you exactly how it will all be displayed, but I do know that he will be throughout the entire sphere of it. There will be artwork that has been created in honor of him that will be a part of it. People will have the opportunity to listen to things that he has done and view them. And then there'll also be recording studios, so they'll be able to come in and record their own things as well. So he's going to be an integral part. I mean, it will be all about his work, but then also incorporating spur, saddle, and some other craftsmanship type pieces to that. So it's going to be really special. And we really want to get it finished while he have him, so he can be a part of that and the opening and all of that. So
yeah. Just now turning my video on, because I never made it to my bathroom to put makeup and do the hair on today after the barn before my first teleconference. You know how that is working at home.
Yep, that happens.
Yeah. Oh, that is so awesome. Because I'm a Western history nerd. And that is so awesome to hear about the Clapper display as well. So anyway, thank you for sharing what you could. And I have two special young ladies who will begin attending tech, even though I am a diehard Aggie. They will begin attending tech in the fall. And so I'll have even more reasons now to come out to Lubbock. And I know Jill and Brett well from the NCHA, because I am very active in the governance of the NCHA and worked with Jill and Brett the few years he was there. So
he is the best. He is.
I love Jim Brett to death.
I do too. Well, and are you a member with us? at the Ranching Heritage
I,
Center?
I am not. Yeah, feel free to send me that information. So,
I'll get your information from Venessa and I'll send you some of our recent issues of the Ranch Record because there's one that covers Billy Clapper and then there's one that has some stuff from Red in it too. So.
oh, thank you so much. I'll look forward to looking at those.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Awesome. I just love this conversation. You're just one of those people that, I mean, me speaking, but I think I could probably speak on behalf of the women on here. We could just talk all day.
Oh, y'all too. Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. It's such a special, unique group of women that y'all have put together, and it's really amazing. Great community.